Some moments in life don't arrive with noise. They don't warn you. They don't ask for attention. But when they happen, everything changes. That night, rain slammed against the glass walls of the Grand Sterling Hotel, a place built for the powerful, the wealthy, and the kind of secrets no one wants exposed. And among the people walking through that lobby, there was one man no one questioned. Dominic Varela, a billionaire, a man who owned more than most could ever imagine: money, influence, and the power to change outcomes with a single decision. He didn't react quickly. He reacted precisely. And when he did, things didn't stay the same. As Dominic crossed the marble floor under the soft golden lights, everything looked exactly as it should. Perfect, controlled, untouchable, until a small voice cut through the silence behind him. No crying, no panic. Just calm, in a way that didn't belong to a child. My mom is dying, and they won't pay her. Dominic stopped. He didn't turn around right away. But for the first time that night, a billionaire felt something was very, very wrong. The following story was submitted by a viewer who asked us to share it with all of you in hopes of receiving thoughtful advice and insights in the comments below. And now, the story begins. Dominic didn't turn around immediately. Men like him didn't react fast. They reacted precisely. He slowed his steps. Just enough. Then he looked. The girl was still sitting there, her eyes fixed somewhere ahead, like she had already said what needed to be said and didn't expect anyone to answer. Dominic walked toward her, not rushed, not aggressive. Just steady. When he got close, he lowered himself slightly, bringing his presence down to her level. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. The girl looked at him. No fear, no hesitation, just tired honesty. "My mom is working upstairs," she said. "She's really sick, but they told her if she stops coming, she won't get paid at all." She paused, then added, almost like she was explaining something simple, "And we don't have anything left." Dominic held her gaze. And in that moment, the meeting he came for, the people waiting upstairs, none of it mattered anymore. Because somewhere above them, a woman was working while dying, and someone had decided that was acceptable. Dominic slowly stood up. Not angry, not yet, but something had already shifted. And once it did, it never went back. Dominic didn't rush her. He had learned a long time ago that when people carry something heavy, you don't pull it out of them. You let it come. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl shifted the backpack slightly, as if adjusting something more than just the straps. "Lily," she said. "Lily," he repeated, committing it to memory. "How long have you been sitting here?" She looked up at the chandelier, thinking carefully, not guessing, not rushing. "A while," she said. "Since my mom went back upstairs." Dominic glanced toward the elevators, then back at her. "She works here." Lily nodded. "Cleaning rooms. Night shift." Her voice stayed steady, but her fingers tightened around the zipper of her bag. "She wasn't supposed to come tonight," Lily added. "She couldn't even stand this morning." That made Dominic pause. "Then why is she here?" Lily hesitated this time. Not because she didn't know, but because she knew too much. "They said if she misses again," she whispered, "they won't pay her at all." The words landed harder the second time. Dominic's jaw tightened slightly. "How long haven't they paid her?" Lily shook her head. "I don't know, but she keeps saying we just have to wait a little longer." A small pause. "She says things will get better," Lily added. "But she says that even when she cries." Dominic didn't speak, because there was nothing simple to say to that. "Do you have anyone else?" he asked. Lily shook her head again, this time faster. "It's just us. No drama, no exaggeration, just truth. The kind that doesn't need decoration." Dominic studied her face for a moment. There was no panic there, no confusion, just a quiet kind of understanding that didn't belong to a child. "Does your mom know you're down here?" "She thinks I'm in the staff room," Lily said. "But it smelled weird, and no one was there. So she came down here instead, to a lobby full of strangers. Because somehow, that felt less lonely." Dominic exhaled slowly. "What floor is she on?" "Somewhere up there," Lily said, pointing vaguely. "She cleans a lot of them." Of course she did. That's how places like this worked. Invisible people doing invisible work until something went wrong. Dominic reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, but didn't dial yet. Instead, he asked one more question. "What's your mom's name?" Lily looked straight at him. "Eva." A beat. "Eva Carter." Dominic nodded once. Then he stood, not rushed, not loud, but with purpose. Because now, This wasn't just a conversation anymore. Somewhere above them, a woman named Eva Carter was pushing her body past its limit for money she might never receive. And Dominic had already decided that wasn't going to continue. But what he didn't know yet was that this wasn't just about unpaid wages. Not even close. Dominic didn't head straight to the elevators. That would have been too obvious. Instead, he turned slightly, scanning the lobby the way he always did. Not for what was visible, but for what didn't fit. The receptionist avoided eye contact just a second too long. The night manager near the desk shifted his posture when Dominic looked in his direction. Small things. But small things mattered. Dominic stepped aside, speaking quietly into his phone. "Raphael," he said. A voice answered immediately. "Yeah. I need everything on this hotel's payroll handling." Quietly. A pause. "That fast?" "Now," Dominic replied. The line went dead. Dominic slipped the phone back into his pocket and walked toward the reception desk. The night manager straightened up instantly. "Good evening, sir. How can I assist?" "Eva Carter," Dominic said, cutting through the politeness without raising his voice. The manager blinked. "I'm sorry. She works night cleaning," Dominic continued. "Which floor is she assigned to?" The man hesitated. "Just a fraction too long. I'd have to check the system." "Do that." There was no threat in Dominic's tone. That was the problem. The manager turned to the computer, fingers moving quickly, but not smoothly. Nervous. Dominic watched him. Not the screen. The man. People always told you more with how they acted than what they said. "She's rotating floors tonight," the manager said. "Standard procedure." "Which floor right now?" "I'm not entirely sure at this exact moment." Dominic leaned slightly closer. "You should be." Silence. The manager swallowed. "I can call upstairs and find out." "Do it." As the man reached for the phone, Dominic's gaze drifted past him toward the back offices. Closed doors. Dim lights. Controlled access. That's where decisions were made. Not here in the lobby. Not where guests could see. His phone buzzed. A message from Raphael. Something's off. Payroll delays flagged. Multiple employees. Dominic's eyes narrowed slightly. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a pattern. He looked back at the manager, who was now speaking quietly into the phone. "Yes. I need to confirm Eva Carter's location." A pause. Then something changed in his expression. A flicker. Gone in a second. But Dominic caught it. When the manager hung up, his voice was steadier. "She's on the 11th floor." Dominic nodded once. "Good." He turned away. But before he could take more than 2 steps, the manager spoke again. "Sir, if this is about a complaint, we have procedures." Dominic stopped, not turning around. "I'm sure you do," he said calmly. Another step. "But tonight, we're not using them." And that's when the manager realized something wasn't right. Not just with the situation, but with the man he had just tried to manage. Dominic pressed the elevator button. Behind him, the lobby returned to its quiet routine. In front of him, the doors slid open. And somewhere on the 11th floor, something was already starting to fall apart. The hallway on the 11th floor was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel louder than it should. Dominic stepped out of the elevator, his eyes already scanning the corridor. Soft lighting. Closed doors. Perfectly arranged. Everything looked exactly the way a luxury hotel wants it to look. Untouched. Effortless. But he knew better. Places like this only looked effortless because someone else was carrying the weight. He moved down the hallway slowly. Then he saw it. A cleaning cart. Parked slightly off-center. Not abandoned, but not properly placed either. That alone was enough. Dominic walked toward it. And then he saw her. Eva Carter. She was sitting on the floor beside the cart, her back pressed against the wall, one hand braced on the carpet like she had tried to stand and couldn't. Her head tilted slightly forward, breathing shallow. But she was conscious. Barely. Her uniform was neat, too neat for someone in her condition. Like she had been trying to hold herself together even while falling apart. Dominic crouched beside her. "Eva." Her eyes opened slowly. Confused at first. Then alert. "Lily," she whispered immediately. "Where's Lily?" "She's safe," Dominic said. "She's downstairs." The relief that crossed her face was instant. "Raw. You shouldn't be here," she said weakly. "Guests aren't allowed." "You shouldn't be working," Dominic replied. A faint, tired smile flickered across her face. "That's not how it works." "No," he said quietly. "It isn't." She tried to push herself up again. Her arm trembled. Failed. Dominic reached out. Not forceful, not sudden, just enough to steady her. Don't, he said. I have rooms left, she insisted. If I don't finish, you will, Dominic said. Just not tonight. She looked at him. Really looked this time. Trying to understand who he was and why he was here. They said, she swallowed. If I miss again, they won't pay me at all. Dominic didn't respond immediately, because now he wasn't just hearing Lily's version. He was seeing it. Up close. Real. How long have they been holding your pay, he asked. Eva hesitated. 3 weeks, she said finally. Maybe 4. Maybe. They keep saying there are issues with my attendance. You were sick. Yes. And you still came in. Yes. A pause. Then she said something that made everything worse. I just need 1 more week, she whispered. Then I can catch up on rent. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood, not abruptly, but with a certainty that hadn't been there before. Stay here, he said. She let out a small, almost broken laugh. I'm not going anywhere. Dominic turned toward the door, because now, this wasn't about finding the problem anymore. He had already found it. Now, it was about finding who caused it, and fixing it. But as he stepped into the hallway, his phone buzzed again. Another message from Raphael. And this one changed everything. Dominic didn't read the message right away. He already knew something was wrong. Now he needed to see how wrong. He walked back to the elevator, his pace unchanged, but his focus sharper. By the time he reached the lobby again, the night manager was waiting. Not standing casually anymore. Standing like someone expecting a problem. Sir, the manager said, forcing a polite smile. I was informed you went upstairs, Derek Shaw, Dominic said. The man froze. That's your name, right? Yes. Dominic stepped closer. Not threatening. Just present. Let's talk about Eva Carter. Derek adjusted his jacket slightly. As I mentioned earlier, payroll matters are handled through proper channels. 3 to 4 weeks unpaid, Dominic said. Derek blinked. That's under review. Because she was sick. Because she missed scheduled shifts, Derek corrected. She was sick, Dominic repeated. Silence stretched between them. Guests passed by in the background. Soft footsteps. Quiet conversations. A completely different world from the one unfolding here. Our policy is very clear, Derek continued. Attendance impacts compensation. Even when someone is physically unable to work, we have to maintain standards. Dominic held his gaze. And collapsing on the floor upstairs, that meets your standards? Derek hesitated. Just for a second. That's unfortunate, he said carefully. But it doesn't change policy. Dominic tilted his head slightly, studying him. Not the words. The space behind them. Who approved the hold on her pay, he asked. That's handled internally. By you. Derek's jaw tightened. I oversee operations, yes. So yes. Another pause. Then Derek tried something different. If she has concerns, she can file a formal complaint. Dominic let out a quiet breath. Not frustration. Not anger. Something colder. She doesn't have time for complaints, he said. Derek frowned slightly. I don't understand what you're implying. That's fine, Dominic replied. Because at that moment, his phone buzzed again. And this time, he looked at it. Read it. And everything shifted. The message was short, but it said enough. Money rerouted. External source involved. Dominic slowly lifted his gaze back to Derek. And for the first time, there was no patience left in it. Because this wasn't just bad management. This was something else. Something deliberate. And Derek Shaw had just stepped into the center of it. Dominic didn't speak immediately. He let the silence stretch. Because silence makes people feel it. Derek shifted his weight. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, he said. These things happen. No, Dominic said quietly. They don't. Derek's smile faded slightly. Dominic stepped closer. Payroll delays don't just happen, he continued. Not like this. Not repeatedly. Derek's expression hardened. We're a large operation. There are systems. Systems don't redirect money, Dominic interrupted. That hit. A flicker. Small. But real. Derek recovered quickly. I don't know what you think you've heard. I haven't heard anything, Dominic said. I've seen enough. Another step. Now there was nowhere for Derek to shift. Who's paying you? Dominic asked. The question landed clean. Direct. Derek's eyes narrowed. That's an accusation. It's a question. I don't answer to guests. Dominic almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed something. You're right, he said. You don't. Derek opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Because something changed. Not in Dominic's posture. not in his voice, but in the realization slowly forming behind Derek's eyes. "You're not just a guest," he said. Dominic didn't answer. He didn't need to. Derek's breathing shifted. "Faster now. Look," he said, lowering his voice. "Whatever you think this is, it's not worth causing trouble over one employee." One employee. Dominic repeated that in his head. A woman collapsing upstairs. A child waiting alone downstairs. Reduced to one employee. "For weeks of pay," Dominic said. "Where did it go?" Derek stayed silent. And that silence was the first real answer. Dominic nodded slowly. There it was. The crack. Small, but enough. "Stay available," Dominic said calmly. "We're not done." He turned away, leaving Derek standing there. Not fired. Not exposed. Not yet. But for the first time, not in control. Dominic walked back toward the elevators. Because now he knew this wasn't just about Eva. This wasn't just about money. Someone had designed this carefully. And if that was true, then somewhere behind all of this, there was a reason. And reasons like that don't stay hidden for long. Dominic didn't return to the 11th floor right away. Instead, he stepped into a quieter corner near the lobby's side lounge, where the lights dimmed and conversations faded into background noise. He pulled out his phone again, this time not waiting. "Raphael," he said. "I'm already in," Raphael replied. "And you were right." Dominic leaned against the wall, eyes still on the elevators. "Tell me." "There are delays across multiple employees," Raphael continued. "But only a few are being held long-term. Eva Carter is one of them." "Why her?" A pause. "That's where it gets interesting," Raphael said. "The withheld payments aren't just sitting in a company account." Dominic's gaze sharpened. "They're being rerouted." "To where?" "External account. Not tied to the hotel." Dominic didn't move. "Someone's siphoning wages," Raphael added. "But only from specific employees. It's selective." "Which means it's intentional," Dominic said. "Exactly." Dominic exhaled slowly, processing it. "This isn't just corruption," he said. "It's targeted." "Yeah," Raphael agreed. "And there's more." Dominic waited. "The account receiving the money, it's been linked before." "Where?" "Private legal disputes. Custody battles. Financial leverage cases." That made Dominic go still. "Say that again." "Someone's using financial pressure," Raphael said. "Starving certain individuals of income to force outcomes." Dominic's eyes shifted slightly, back toward the bench, where Lily had been sitting. "Find the name tied to that account," Dominic said. "I'm already working on it." Dominic ended the call. For a moment, the noise of the hotel returned, the distant hum of conversation, footsteps, soft music. But none of it mattered anymore. Because this wasn't random. It wasn't mismanagement. It was a strategy. And Eva Carter was part of it. Dominic pushed off the wall and started walking again, this time with a different kind of focus. Not just to stop something, but to uncover who had started it. Because if someone was willing to manipulate a woman's livelihood, knowing she had a child, knowing she was sick, then this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. And control always came from somewhere. As Dominic stepped back toward the elevators, one thought settled clearly in his mind. This wasn't the end of the problem. It was the beginning. And whoever was behind it had just made a mistake. By the time Dominic reached the elevator again, Raphael's next message was already waiting. He didn't open it immediately, not because he was avoiding it, but because he already knew it wouldn't be simple. The door slid open. He stepped inside. Only then did he look. A name appeared on the screen. Daniel Hargrove. Dominic didn't react outwardly, but something clicked. Raphael called again. "That name mean anything to you?" he asked. "Not yet," Dominic replied. "Explain." "He's been involved in multiple custody disputes," Raphael said. "Aggressive ones." "How aggressive?" "Financial manipulation. Legal pressure. Pattern of isolating the other parent." Dominic's jaw tightened slightly. "And Eva?" "She filed for sole custody 8 months ago." That was it. The missing piece. Dominic leaned back slightly as the elevator moved. "And Daniel Hargrove is her ex-husband." Silence filled the space. Everything lined up now. The withheld pay. The targeted pressure. The timing. "He's cutting off her income," Dominic said, "to make her unstable. And if she can't support the child," Raphael added, "he has a stronger case in court." Dominic closed his eyes for a brief second. Not in frustration. In clarity. Because now he understood the full picture. This wasn't about the hotel. The hotel was just the tool. Derek Shaw was just the middleman. This is deliberate, Dominic said. Very, Raphael confirmed. And clean enough to avoid obvious legal exposure. Dominic let out a quiet breath. Where is he? I can get you an address. Do it. The call ended. The elevator doors opened again. But Dominic didn't step out immediately. Because something else had just changed. This wasn't just about fixing a situation anymore. This was about confronting someone who believed they could break a person quietly, without consequences. Dominic stepped out. And as he walked down the hallway again, one thing became clear. Daniel Hargrove wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to destroy. And people who think like that rarely expect someone to stand in their way. Especially not someone like Dominic. But that was exactly what was about to happen. When Dominic returned to the 11th floor, the hallway didn't feel the same. Not because anything had visibly changed, but because now he understood what was happening behind it. He moved quickly this time. Not rushed, but direct. The cleaning cart was still there. But Eva wasn't sitting anymore. She was on the floor, collapsed. One arm stretched slightly forward, as if she had tried to reach something before her strength gave out completely. Dominic crossed the distance in seconds. Eva. No response. He knelt beside her, checking her breathing. Shallow. Uneven. Still there. But barely. He pulled out his phone immediately. I need medical assistance, he said calmly. 11th floor. Now. As he spoke, he gently turned her onto her side, keeping her airway clear. Training. Experience. Control. But beneath it, something else was building. Not panic. Not yet. But something close. Because this wasn't supposed to get this far. Not over withheld pay. Not over someone's calculated decision. Stay with me, he said quietly, though he didn't know if she could hear him. Her hand twitched slightly. A weak response. But enough. Moments later, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Hotel staff. Then emergency responders. Everything moved fast after that. Questions. Equipment. Movement. Eva was lifted carefully onto a stretcher. Dominic stepped back just enough to let them work, but not far enough to disconnect. Will she be okay? One of the staff asked quietly. Dominic didn't answer. Because the truth was, that depended on how long this had been going on. As they wheeled her toward the elevator, Dominic followed. Not close. Not interfering. Just there. Because someone needed to be. And as the doors closed around them, he realized something that changed everything again. If Lily had waited just a little longer, if she hadn't said anything, if he hadn't stopped, this would have ended very differently. And somewhere, someone had almost gotten exactly what they wanted. The ambulance doors closed with a solid, final sound. Rain still fell outside, steady and cold against the pavement. Dominic stood just a few steps back as the paramedics secured Eva inside. Her face looked pale under the harsh lights. Too pale. Lily stood beside him, clutching his sleeve now. Not tightly, not desperately, but enough to stay grounded. Is she going to wake up? Lily asked. Her voice was quiet. Careful. Like she didn't want to ask too much. Dominic looked down at her. She's getting help now, he said. That's what matters. It wasn't a promise. But it was honest. Lily nodded slightly. That was enough for her. The ambulance pulled away moments later, disappearing into the rain. And just like that, everything shifted again. Because now, this wasn't just about stopping something. It was about making sure it didn't happen again. Dominic looked down at Lily. Do you have anything you need? He asked. She shook her head, then paused. Can I go with her? Dominic nodded. You will. He made a quick call. Arrangements. Permissions. Details handled quietly and quickly. Within minutes, a second vehicle was ready. Lily climbed in, still holding her backpack. Before the door closed, she looked back at Dominic. Are you coming too? She asked. Dominic met her eyes. For a second, he didn't answer. Then he said, I'll meet you there. The door closed. The car pulled away. And Dominic was left standing in the rain for a moment longer. Not because he needed time, but because something inside him had already locked into place. He turned, walked back toward the hotel, because there was still unfinished business. And now, it wasn't just personal. It was necessary, because someone had nearly taken everything from that child. Quietly, legally, systematically. And Dominic had no intention of letting that continue. But when he stepped back inside, Derek Shaw was already waiting. And this time, he wasn't pretending anymore. Part 11, Justice Begins. Derek didn't greet him. Didn't smile. Didn't pretend. Look, he said quickly, lowering his voice. We can fix this. Dominic stopped in front of him. Fix what? The situation, Derek replied. The payments. I can release them immediately. Dominic tilted his head slightly. Now you can. Derek swallowed. I didn't realize it had escalated. You knew exactly what you were doing, Dominic said. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just certain. Derek's composure cracked. Listen, he said. I was told to handle it this way. By who? Silence. Dominic didn't rush it. Because this time, Derek didn't have anywhere to hide. You don't want to be involved in this, Derek said quietly. It's bigger than you think. Dominic almost smiled. It usually is. Another pause. Then Derek looked around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. I was paid, he admitted. To delay her checks. That's all. How much? Enough. Dominic nodded once. Who paid you? Derek hesitated. Then said it. Daniel Hargrove. There it was. Out loud. Real. And now irreversible. Dominic stepped back slightly. Not because he was done, but because this part was over. Your employment here is finished, he said calmly. Derek blinked. You can't. I can. Another step back. And you'll cooperate fully with what comes next. Derek's face drained of color. Because now he understood. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. It never was. Dominic turned away, walking toward the elevators once again. Because Derek was no longer the focus. He had served his purpose. Now, there was only one person left to deal with. And unlike Derek, that person believed he was untouchable. For now, Dominic didn't linger in the lobby after Derek spoke. He let the confession settle in the air just long enough to make it real. Then he moved. Not fast, not aggressive, but final. Behind him, Derek stood frozen, the weight of his own words pressing down harder than anything Dominic could have said. Dominic stepped outside briefly, dialing Raphael again. It's confirmed, he said. Derek took money from Daniel Hargrove. I figured, Raphael replied. You want me to escalate? Not yet, Dominic said. I want everything documented. Clean. Traceable. Understood. And Raphael? Yeah? Make sure every dollar that was taken gets accounted for. A pause. That includes compensation, Dominic added. Not just recovery. Raphael didn't hesitate. I'll handle it. The call ended. Dominic looked up at the hotel for a moment. The lights, the polished image, the illusion. Then he walked back inside. Derek was still there. Waiting. Not out of choice. Out of realization. What happens now? Derek asked quietly. Dominic stopped in front of him. You cooperate, he said. Fully. You provide records, communications, everything tied to this arrangement. Derek nodded quickly. And if I do that? Dominic held his gaze. Then you give yourself a chance to walk away from this, without it following you forever. That was the closest thing to mercy Derek was going to get. And Eva? Derek asked. Dominic didn't answer right away. Because this wasn't about Eva anymore. It was about what had been done to her. She gets everything she's owed, Dominic said finally. And more. Derek nodded again. Relief mixed with fear. Because for the first time, the situation was no longer in his control. Dominic turned away, walking toward the exit once more. Because there was only one place left to go. The hospital. And after that, someone else would need to answer. But as Dominic stepped into the night again, one thought stayed with him. This wasn't just justice starting. It was something else. Something that had been building long before tonight. And it wasn't finished yet. The hospital was quieter than the hotel. Not in sound, but in weight. Everything here felt real. No polished surfaces. No illusions. Just truth. Dominic found Lily sitting outside a room, her feet barely touching the floor, her backpack still in her lap. She looked up the moment she saw him. You came, she said. I said I would. He sat beside her, not too close, not too far. How is she? He asked. They're still checking, Lily said. They won't let me go in yet. Dominic nodded. That made sense. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily asked something quietly. Did they do something wrong? Dominic looked at her. Not as a child. As someone who deserved the truth. Yes, he said. They did. She nodded slowly. Like she already knew. I thought so, she whispered. Dominic's phone vibrated. A message from Raphael. Address confirmed. Daniel Hargrove. Downtown office. Dominic stood. I need to step out for a bit, he said. Lily looked up at him. Are you coming back? Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. She nodded. That was enough. Dominic walked out of the hospital, the night air colder now. Different. Because now, there was a direction. A target. He got into the car waiting for him and gave the address. The drive didn't take long. A modern building. Glass. Steel. Control. Just like the hotel. Dominic stepped inside without announcement. Reception tried to stop him. Didn't succeed. Moments later, he was standing in front of an office door. He didn't knock. He opened it. Daniel Hargrove looked up from his desk, surprised, but not alarmed. Not yet. Can I help you? He asked. Dominic stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Yes, he said. You can start by explaining why you thought this was a good idea. Daniel frowned slightly. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Dominic walked closer. Slow. Measured. Eva Carter, he said. And just like that, the room changed. Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying Dominic carefully now. Not dismissing him anymore. Evaluating. I don't discuss personal matters with strangers, Daniel said. Dominic didn't sit. Didn't soften. This stopped being personal when you involved other people, he replied. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. Controlled, but still confident. You're making assumptions, Daniel said. If this is about a dispute, there are legal channels. You rerouted her income, Dominic interrupted. Daniel didn't respond. Didn't deny it. Which said enough. She filed for custody, Dominic continued. You needed leverage. Silence. Then Daniel spoke again, quieter. Everything I've done is within legal boundaries. Dominic tilted his head slightly. That's what you're telling yourself. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm protecting my daughter, he said. Ensuring stability. By taking it away from her mother? She's unstable already, Daniel replied. I'm just making it clear. Dominic stepped closer. Now there was no distance left. You didn't make it clear, he said. You made it worse. Daniel stood up slowly, trying to reclaim control. You don't understand the full situation, he said. I understand enough. A pause. Then Dominic added, she collapsed tonight. That landed. Not dramatically, but deeply. Daniel didn't speak. Didn't react much. But something shifted behind his eyes. And Dominic saw it. Not regret. Calculation. That wasn't the intention, Daniel said finally. Dominic nodded slowly. That's the problem. Silence filled the room again. He stepped back this time. Not retreating. Concluding. This ends now, Dominic said. Daniel frowned. You don't get to decide that. Dominic looked at him. Calm. Certain. I already did. And for the first time, Daniel wasn't entirely sure he could stop what was coming next. The changes didn't happen overnight, but they happened fast. Faster than Daniel expected. Within days, the withheld wages were returned. Fully documented, fully restored. Not quietly. Not hidden. Everything was accounted for. Derek provided records. Communications surfaced. Patterns became visible. And once they did, it wasn't just one case anymore. It was a system. One that didn't hold up under attention. Eva remained in the hospital for several days. Exhaustion. Dehydration. Complications that had been ignored too long. But she stabilized. Slowly. Lily stayed close the entire time. Never far. Never uncertain. Because now she wasn't alone anymore. When Eva finally woke fully, the first thing she asked wasn't about work. It was about Lily. And when she saw her safe, something in her finally let go. The stress. The fear. The constant pressure. It didn't disappear. But it loosened. Dominic visited once. Quietly. No announcement. No attention. He didn't stay long. He didn't need to. Everything that needed to be handled had been. Eva looked at him with a kind of understanding she couldn't fully explain. Why did you help us? She asked. Dominic paused. Not searching for an answer. Choosing one. Because someone should have, he said. And that was it. No speeches. No explanations. Just truth. As he left the room, Lily watched him go. Not with confusion, but with clarity. Because even she understood, some people don't stay. But they change everything before they leave. Weeks passed. Life didn't return to what it was. It moved forward. Eva didn't go back to the hotel. She didn't have to. A new job came through. Better conditions, stable hours, fair pay. Nothing extravagant. But safe. And sometimes, safe is everything. Lily adjusted quickly. Children do. But not because they forget. Because they adapt. One afternoon, as they walked through a small park not far from their new apartment, Lily slowed down slightly. Then stopped. Is that him? She asked. Eva followed her gaze. Across the street, standing near a quiet cafe, Dominic. Not in a suit this time. Not surrounded by anything that marked who he was. Just there. Watching the street like anyone else. For a moment, Eva didn't move. Then she did. walking across slowly, Lily right beside her. Dominic noticed them before they reached him. Of course he did. He always noticed. They stopped a few steps away. No dramatic reunion. No overwhelming moment. Just a quiet recognition. "Hi," Lily said. Dominic nodded slightly. "Hi." Eva hesitated for a second, then spoke. "We're doing better." Dominic looked at them both, and for the first time, there was something softer in his expression. "I know," he said. A small pause. Then Lily stepped forward just a little. "Thank you," she said. Not loud, not rehearsed, just real. Dominic didn't respond immediately, because some words don't need to be answered. He gave a small nod, then stepped back, not disappearing, just moving on. And as Eva and Lily walked away together, something became clear. Not every story ends with noise. Some end quietly, but they stay with you. Because somewhere out there, a moment happened. A choice was made. And because of it, two lives didn't fall apart. And sometimes, that's more than enough. This story leaves behind a quiet feeling. Not the kind of loud, dramatic intensity, but a lingering sense of reflection that stays with you long after it ends. What made me think the most wasn't the presence of a powerful figure, but the moment a child was forced to grow up faster than she should. When a little girl can calmly say, "My mom is sick and they won't pay her," it shows that some pain doesn't need tears to be heavy enough to make adults stop and rethink how society operates. From my personal perspective, I realize that life doesn't always fall apart because of one big event, but because of small pressures repeated over time without anyone stepping in. A mother pushing herself to work while exhausted isn't doing it out of choice, but because she feels she has no other option. That makes us question whether, in our daily lives, we are unintentionally overlooking small signs of injustice around us. Sometimes, just one act of care at the right moment, one question asked at the right time, can completely change the direction of someone's life. The biggest lesson I take from this story is not about becoming a hero, but about choosing not to turn away when something is clearly wrong. Not everyone has power or the ability to make big interventions, but everyone can choose not to ignore. Kindness in modern life doesn't have to be grand, but it has to be timely. At the same time, the story reminds us of the importance of financial independence and transparency at work. When someone loses control over their finances, they can easily be pushed into a vulnerable position and manipulated in subtle ways. Another meaningful takeaway is how children observe the world. They may not understand everything, but they feel injustice very clearly. That means the way we act doesn't just affect the present. It shapes how the next generation sees fairness, compassion, and courage. This story is created for educational purposes, helping listeners recognize human values and apply them in their lives to become better each day. From my personal point of view, I believe that not all strong people are cold. Sometimes they are simply waiting for a clear enough reason to act. I believe that staying silent in the face of injustice is also a choice, and it is often the one that makes things worse. I've realized that small actions, like asking a question or showing concern at the right moment, can create a powerful impact. I think everyone has a moral boundary, and what matters is whether we are willing to step beyond it to protect others. I feel that children are often mirrors reflecting truths that adults try to avoid. I believe kindness doesn't need to be loud to be meaningful. I've learned that true power is not about control, but about protection. I see that stories like this help us reflect on ourselves more deeply. I think society would be better if more people chose not to look away. And I believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to create change. This story contains some elements that are creatively developed and supported by AI technology, with the purpose of providing engaging entertainment and delivering meaningful, inspiring lessons to the audience. Disclaimer: the content in this video is for educational and reference purposes only. It does not represent any real individuals, organizations, or actual events. Viewers are encouraged to use their own judgment and apply the lessons appropriately to their personal situations.